Have you ever trusted someone and felt your heart shatter? Maybe it was a friend, a partner, a colleague. One moment you believed they cared, the next they left you broken, angry, or betrayed. And in that pain, you made a silent promise: I will never let anyone hurt me again. But here's the truth: no one can ever truly protect you from the world. Or can they? Because the secret isn't about controlling others, it's about mastering yourself. The first key point is the power of inner armor. Imagine walking through a storm with no umbrella, feeling the rain soak you, the wind tug at your clothes, the cold biting into your skin. Most people think protection comes from outside: good friends, loving partners, a steady job, or constant validation. But real protection starts within. It's a quiet, almost invisible strength, built in the moments when no one is watching. When you learn to respect yourself, to recognize your boundaries, to hold your own heart with gentle authority, you begin to carry an invisible shield. Not rigid or cold, but resilient, flexible, and impervious to the small cruelties and misunderstandings life throws at you. This armor doesn't isolate you, it defines your space. Think of it as a garden surrounded by walls, not to trap the sunlight or block the breeze, but to keep the weeds from choking the flowers. When you cultivate your inner garden, you choose what seeds grow and what you let die. Each time someone crosses a line, questions your worth, or acts carelessly with your feelings, it no longer feels like a violation. Instead, it's just noise outside the walls. Your peace isn't a fragile vase, it's a stone basin, strong enough to withstand the impact of 1,000 small storms without breaking. Building this kind of armor begins with observation. Notice how your mind reacts when someone criticizes you, when someone betrays your trust, or when someone's actions leave a mark you didn't expect. Most people react reflexively. They flinch, they lash out, they retreat. But if you pause even for a breath and simply watch the moment unfold, you start creating a gap between the action and your reaction. That gap is your power. It is the first layer of the shield. With time, this space grows, and suddenly, what once shook you no longer penetrates. The same words that used to sting now bounce harmlessly off, because your response is rooted in understanding, not fear. Self-respect is the second layer. Without it, no armor holds. It's not arrogance or self-absorption, it's a quiet knowledge of your limits and your value. Self-respect tells you that you will not compromise your integrity to please someone else, that you won't allow others to define your worth, that you have the right to walk away without guilt when a situation threatens your peace. It acts like a force field, subtle but undeniable. People may still try to push, poke, or prod, but the boundaries are visible. Not in a sign on a door, but in the way you carry yourself, the way you speak, the way you honor your own needs first. Vulnerability exists within this armor, not outside it. You can still feel, still connect, still love deeply, but your emotions are no longer weapons anyone can wield against you. Picture a diamond floating in water. The water touches it, the waves crash around it, but the diamond remains unbroken, untainted, reflecting the light rather than absorbing the chaos. The secret is learning how to let emotions pass through without clinging, without letting them define you, to feel without surrendering, to care without losing yourself. That is what makes the heart unassailable, its ability to hold softness while remaining unshaken. Discipline is the next layer, the forge where the armor is tempered. It is built in daily rituals, in repeated choices to protect your energy, in saying no when your instinct says yes, in letting go of patterns that erode your peace. Each act of self-discipline strengthens the inner structure, like hammering iron in silence, unseen but crucial. It is invisible to the world but transformative within. A disciplined mind does not allow resentment or bitterness to creep in. It filters experiences through wisdom rather than reaction, giving you clarity that outsiders will never touch. Finally, remember that inner armor is not a finish line, it is a lifelong practice. Some days it feels fragile, the rain seeps through, the wind shakes your walls. That's natural. The purpose is not perfection, it's presence. Each time you notice a crack and repair it, each time you feel the shield falter and reinforce it with reflection, the armor grows stronger, more seamless, more natural. Life will always bring challenges. People will continue to test your boundaries. But when your protection is built from within, you walk through the world untouched by the chaos outside. It doesn't make you cold. It makes you free, powerful, and fully alive in a way nothing external can take away. This armor allows you to see the world clearly. You begin to recognize who lifts you and who drains you, who adds to your life and who subtracts, without confusion or panic. You are no longer at the mercy of other people's moods or mistakes. Their actions might ripple across the surface, but beneath you remain steady, anchored in your own strength. It is a quiet kind of power, unseen by many, but irresistible in its effect. People notice it without knowing why. You become a presence that can feel deeply, act decisively, and remain untouched, not by controlling others, but by mastering yourself. The second key point is stop expecting, start observing. Expectation is a subtle trap. It hides in our hearts like a quiet shadow, shaping the way we see the world without us even noticing. When you expect someone to act a certain way, to care like you care, to understand like you understand, you hand over a piece of your peace to them. And when reality, why doesn't match that expectation? The disappointment cuts deep because it wasn't a surprise, it was a betrayal of the story you told yourself. The mind loves to script life like a movie, casting people in roles they never auditioned for, and we wonder why the plot twists leave us bleeding inside. Observation, on the other hand, requires patience. It asks you to pause, to watch without judgment, to notice patterns, intentions, and truths without forcing them into the shape of your hopes. When you observe, you see people as they are, not as you wish them to be. You begin to notice the flicker of inconsistency in a friend's words, the hesitation in a partner's promises, the patterns of those who repeatedly hurt without apology. These are not signs of betrayal, they are simply the map of reality. Observation is the lens that transforms chaos into clarity. It teaches you to navigate life without bruising your spirit against illusions. When you stop expecting, you stop the emotional whiplash. Every unmet expectation is a shock to the system, a ripple in your inner calm. By observing instead, you prepare yourself for reality, not for a fantasy. Think of expectation like carrying fragile glass across a busy street, hoping no one bumps into you. Observation is learning to walk with your eyes open, seeing the obstacles, the people, the uneven pavement, and adjusting without fear. You don't avoid life, you engage with it fully, with awareness. And in that awareness, disappointment loses sting because it no longer arrives as a surprise. It simply exists as another piece of the truth you already see. Observation also gives you foresight, the kind that feels like intuition but is really just deep attentiveness. You start noticing the little things, the way a colleague avoids accountability, the subtle manipulation in a conversation, the tiny cracks in someone's reliability. Others may ignore these details, swept up in hope or desire, but you watch. And watching doesn't mean judging or condemning, it means equipping yourself with knowledge. Every person you encounter becomes a mirror and a teacher, reflecting both their own nature and the parts of you that are ready to respond differently. The more you observe, the less you are taken off guard. There is freedom in removing expectation. Once you stop hoping someone will behave in a particular way, you stop being at the mercy of their actions. Life is full of variables, of moods and mistakes, of miscommunications and misaligned intentions. If your heart is tied to these variables, it is constantly buffeted by storms. But if your heart watches and adapts, it flows with the current instead of being dragged under it. You begin to respond from a place of clarity rather than reaction, from insight rather than fear. And suddenly, the world is less threatening because your inner world is no longer hostage to anyone else's choices. Observation sharpens your self awareness as well. When you watch without expectation, you start noticing your own patterns. Why certain actions trigger anger or hurt. Why some words cut deeper than they should. Why your trust is so easily given or withheld. This reflection is a quiet revolution. You understand that your pain is not always caused by others. Often, it is the collision between reality and the story you built in your mind. When you see this clearly, you reclaim authority over your own emotional state. You become less reactive, less fragile, and more attuned to what truly matters. Finally, observing without expecting creates a subtle power that others cannot see but feel. You move through relationships differently. You speak with clarity because you are not clouded by hope or fear. You listen with presence because you are not distracted by judgment or assumption. People reveal themselves naturally when they are met with calm awareness rather than a charged reaction. You no longer need to manipulate, plead, or negotiate your value. You simply hold the space for truth, and truth arrives in its own time. By replacing expectation with observation, you step into a life where you are grounded, untouchable by disappointment, and alive to the world exactly as it is, not as you imagined it to be. The third key point is embrace emotional independence. Most of us live as if our happiness depends on someone else's approval, someone else's affection, someone else's presence. We hand over pieces of our joy like currency, hoping it will buy love, recognition, or acceptance. And when that currency is spent and the return doesn't match the expectation, we feel bankrupt, small, and incomplete. Emotional independence is the realization that your inner world is not a marketplace where others trade in your worth. It is a sanctuary you build for yourself, a place where your contentment is sovereign, untouchable by anyone else's actions or opinions. This independence doesn't mean shutting down or cutting yourself off from connection. It means feeling fully without relying on someone else to supply that feeling. Imagine a tree growing in the middle of a vast field, its roots deep in the earth, unshaken by passing storms. The rain nourishes it, the sun warms it, but the tree stands because of the strength it has cultivated internally. Your emotions work the same way. When your sense of value, peace, and joy comes from your own roots, the world may throw every storm at you, but you bend without breaking. You can give freely, love openly, and still remain unbroken at the core. Emotional independence is born from self-trust. When you trust yourself to handle life's difficulties, you stop leaning on others for reassurance. You stop asking for constant validation or approval. Each time you respond to a challenge without panic, without looking outward for rescue, you reinforce the belief that you are enough. This trust is not arrogant, it's intimate. It is a quiet conversation with yourself, saying, I am capable, I am resilient, I can feel and survive, no matter what comes. And once that trust exists, the opinions and moods of others no longer hold dominion over your inner world. Part of this independence is learning to separate experience from identity. Many people mistake another person's actions as a reflection of their worth. When someone is cold, dismissive, or cruel, it feels personal, and we internalize it. Emotional independence teaches you to watch without absorbing. You can feel hurt, disappointment, or sadness, but you no longer allow these external currents to redefine who you are. Picture a lake receiving rain from passing clouds. The water rises, ripples, and eventually calms, but the lake does not vanish. You experience life fully without being submerged by the emotions of others. Freedom also comes from detachment, not indifference. Emotional independence allows you to connect with people deeply without making your heart hostage to them. You love without fear of abandonment because you are complete on your own. You listen without the urge to correct or manipulate because you are not anxious about how you are perceived. You give advice, support, or care because it is your choice, not because you are desperate for gratitude. In this state, relationships are enriched, not strained. People feel your stability, your calm, and your unwavering presence, and they respond differently because your energy is grounded in self-possession, not neediness. Emotional independence also teaches resilience. Life will challenge why. Owe you repeatedly, friends will fail, lovers will leave, colleagues will disappoint. Without independence, each of these moments can feel like a collapse of your entire world. But when you cultivate an inner source of joy and stability, setbacks become lessons rather than disasters. The sting of betrayal diminishes because your happiness isn't tethered to someone else's behavior. Every disappointment becomes a mirror, reflecting not just the flaws in the world but the strength and resourcefulness you already possess. You stop fearing loss because you realize you are never truly empty. You carry a reserve of contentment that no one can take. Finally, emotional independence allows your heart to expand rather than contract. When you are not clinging, not begging, not dependent, you have space for genuine connection, for creativity, for compassion. You can enter a room and love fully without demanding reciprocity. You can speak your truth without fear of judgment. You can take risks, knowing your sense of self is intact. It is the ultimate form of freedom, to be soft, open, and fully human, while knowing that no external force can diminish your inner sanctuary. This is the power that makes you untouchable, unshakable, and fully alive in every moment, regardless of what the world offers or withdraws. The fourth key point is learn the art of letting go. So much of our suffering comes from the grip we hold on what has already happened, from the way we clutch at the edges of pain and replay it over and over, hoping it will make sense or change in some way. But the truth is, the past cannot be rewritten. It can only be understood, acknowledged, and released. Letting go is not about forgetting, not about pretending the hurt never existed. It is about stopping the slow poison of resentment from growing inside, about choosing freedom over the illusion of control, about giving yourself permission to breathe again. Holding on feels safe because it creates an illusion of power. If you carry your anger or disappointment with you, it feels as if you are keeping score, protecting yourself from further betrayal. But in reality, every resentment you hold is like gripping a burning coal, expecting it to burn someone else. All it does is scar your own hand. Letting go means slowly opening your fingers, feeling the heat, and allowing it to fall away. You do not extinguish the memory, you release its authority over your emotions. That is the paradox. You reclaim control not by clenching tighter, but by loosening. Letting go begins with honest acknowledgement. You cannot release what you refuse to see. You must look at the hurt, name it, feel it fully, and accept that it is part of your story. Denying it only gives it power in secret, allowing it to fester. Observing your pain without judgment, without labeling yourself weak for feeling it, is the first step toward liberation. Like noticing a storm passing over a field, you see it, respect its force, and then watch it move on, leaving the earth intact and ready to receive the sunlight again. Forgiveness is often part of letting go, though it is misunderstood. It is not telling someone their wrongs are acceptable, and it is not a transaction of moral debt. Forgiveness is a declaration of independence from the grip that pain has on you. It is saying, I will not allow this act to continue to shape my life. You forgive because you are choosing peace, not because the other person deserves it. It is a quiet internal strength that dissolves the chains of anger, like water slowly eroding stone until the river flows freely, unimpeded. Letting go also teaches perspective. Every wound, every betrayal, every disappointment carries within it a lesson, a hidden truth about life, about others, and about yourself. When you release the hold of bitterness, you can see these lessons clearly. You begin to understand patterns you could not see while blinded by hurt. You recognize the boundaries that were crossed and the ones you need to set. You see the moments where compassion might have been missing both in others and in yourself. With each insight, the grip of the past weakens and you grow stronger. Embracing this practice daily transforms the way you engage with life. When a fresh hurt arises, you no longer react automatically, clutching at imagined injuries. Instead, you notice it, process it, and decide whether it deserves space in your heart. Letting go becomes a muscle, strengthening with each repetition. And over time, even deep wounds no longer dominate your emotional landscape. You feel lighter, more present, and less at the mercy of circumstances outside your control. The act of release is not passive. It is a deliberate, courageous reclaiming of your inner sovereignty. Finally, letting go opens space for growth and love. When you carry old pain, it crowds your capacity for joy, for connection, for gratitude. The heart cannot expand while it is stuffed with grudges. But as you release even the smallest resentments, you create room for life to flow in fully. You begin to meet people, opportunities, and experiences with openness rather than suspicion. You can feel deeply without fear of being consumed. You allow yourself to trust, to hope, and to move forward with the quiet confidence that no wound, past or present, can define the fullness of who you are. The fifth key point is cultivate fierce self-love. Self-love is not a soft luxury, it is the foundation of your entire existence. It begins with the quiet recognition that your life, your body, and your mind are not temporary tools to be discarded or reshaped for someone else's approval. They are sacred spaces that deserve care, attention, and respect. Many people mistake self-love for indulgence or selfishness, but it is neither. It is a conscious refusal to let the judgments, criticisms, and neglect of others define your worth. It is a daily choice to honor yourself even when the world seems determined not to. Fierce self-love. V demands honesty. It asks you to look in the mirror without flinching, to see your flaws and scars as part of your story rather than marks of shame. It is the courage to admit your weaknesses without letting them dictate your value, the strength to acknowledge past mistakes without allowing them to imprison you in guilt. When you face yourself fully, without excuses or avoidance, you are planting the seeds of unwavering respect for your own life. This is the soil from which true resilience grows, because when you value yourself, no one else's cruelty can easily erode it. This kind of self-love also means setting boundaries that are non-negotiable. It is the quiet authority in your voice when you say enough to situations that drain you, relationships that diminish you, or demands that compromise your integrity. Boundaries are not walls to push others away. They are the gates of your inner sanctuary, letting in only what nurtures and supports you. Each boundary you enforce reinforces your self-respect and strengthens the invisible armor that protects your heart. When your energy is treated as precious, others instinctively recognize it, and you begin to attract connections that honor your value naturally. Self-love thrives in intentional care. It is in the moments you speak kindly to yourself, celebrate your small victories, and forgive yourself when you stumble. It is in nourishing your mind with thoughts that empower, your body with movement and rest, and your soul with experiences that awaken your curiosity and joy. Imagine your life as a garden. Self-love is the daily tending, the water, the sunlight, and the weeding that allows flowers to bloom fully. Neglect it, and the weeds of doubt and insecurity take over. Cultivate it, and you become a presence that radiates strength, warmth, and calm assurance. Fierce self-love also requires detachment from validation. The world will always offer praise, criticism, or silence, but your sense of worth cannot be outsourced. When you stop leaning on others to confirm your value, you free yourself from the emotional whiplash of approval and rejection. You begin to move through life with a steady heart, unshaken by the highs and lows of external recognition. The applause or the criticism may still arrive, but it no longer dictates your emotional climate. Your peace, your confidence, and your joy originate within, and that is a power no one can take from you. Self-love is transformative because it changes the way you engage with others. When you love yourself fiercely, you no longer seek love from people who are incapable of giving it in a healthy way. You no longer settle for attention that diminishes you or relationships that drain you. You begin to operate from a place of abundance rather than neediness, offering presence, kindness, and care without expectation, but refusing to compromise your boundaries for temporary comfort. This is the paradox. The stronger your self-love, the deeper your capacity to connect, because you are no longer dependent on anyone else to complete you. Finally, cultivating fierce self-love is a practice that ripples through every corner of your life. It shapes your choices, your career, your relationships, and even your dreams. It gives you the courage to say no when necessary and yes to opportunities that honor your values. It allows you to weather failure without collapse, rejection without bitterness, and criticism without shame. Life will continue to test you, to challenge your patience, and to confront you with moments that tempt you to doubt your worth. But each time you return to the steady ground of self-love, you prove to yourself and to the world that your heart is unshakable, your spirit unbreakable, and your life wholly deserving of respect, care, and fierce devotion. The sixth key point is see the lesson, not the pain. Life will deliver moments that sting, betrayals that cut deep, and disappointments that feel like they shake the very ground beneath you. The first instinct is to clutch at the hurt, replay it endlessly, and let it define your reality. But the pain itself is not the story, it is the signal, the raw material from which understanding and growth can emerge. Every wound carries a message, a subtle insight hidden beneath the initial shock, waiting for the moment when you are ready to look beyond your own suffering and perceive the truth it contains. Pain has a way of convincing you that it is permanent, that it is the measure of your life, that it is a reflection of your inadequacy. But if you pause and examine it, you realize that pain is not the enemy, it is a teacher speaking in a language that demands attention. Imagine walking through a dense forest and stepping on a thorn. The prick draws your focus immediately, but it also aches you to watch your step, to notice the hidden dangers around you, and to move with awareness. The pain is temporary, the lesson lasts. When you shift your attention from what hurt you to what you can learn from it, the sting loses its power, and the experience becomes a stepping stone rather than a trap. Every betrayal or failure contains a mirror. It reflects not only the choices and flaws of others, but also the blind spots and habits within yourself. Perhaps you ignored red flags, trusted too quickly, or gave more than you should have. Observing the lesson does not mean blaming yourself. It means acknowledging your role with clarity and compassion, so you are not doomed to repeat patterns that leave you vulnerable. The key is not to dwell on guilt, but to gather insight. The sharpest wisdom often comes clothed in discomfort, and those who can see through the veil of pain emerge stronger, wiser, and more discerning. Learning to see the lesson requires patience. The clarity often does not come in the moment of injury. When someone betrays you, when plans collapse, or when words wound, your mind is consumed with immediate emotion, anger, confusion, fear. But if you hold space for reflection, allow time for your perspective to settle, the layers of meaning start to reveal themselves. Like peeling an onion slowly, you uncover the truths that are invisible in the heat of the moment. Every setback, every lie, every disappointment becomes a map, showing where growth is needed, where air boundaries must be drawn, and where your attention has been misplaced. Pain also teaches empathy. When you have been wounded, you begin to recognize the fragility and struggle in others. You start to see why people act from fear, ignorance, or habit rather than malice. This does not excuse harmful behavior, but it expands your understanding, allowing you to respond from insight rather than reaction. When you see the lesson, your heart softens without weakening. You learn to differentiate between those who are intentionally harmful and those who are imperfect, which gives you freedom to act with both wisdom and compassion, rather than carrying bitterness that only limits your own life. The lesson in pain is not always obvious. It often arrives subtly, through reflection, conversation, or quiet moments of self-awareness. It may reveal a personal strength you never recognized, a boundary that needed reinforcement, or a truth about what truly matters to you. Those who seek meaning in suffering discover resilience in the process. The mind learns that discomfort is not a signal to retreat, but a doorway to growth. And once you cultivate this habit, pain no longer feels like an intrusion. It becomes a guide, a companion in your journey, shaping your character, sharpening your judgment, and building the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you can navigate life unshaken. Finally, seeing the lesson transforms how you engage with life itself. You stop fearing challenges, reject, or failure, because each moment holds the potential to teach rather than destroy. You begin to perceive difficulties not as interruptions to your happiness, but as opportunities to expand your understanding, to refine your choices, and to strengthen your inner self. The world no longer feels hostile, it feels instructive. When you train yourself to extract wisdom from every wound, disappointment, or betrayal, life stops being a series of attacks and starts being a continuous curriculum in which every experience, no matter how painful, carries the seed of empowerment, clarity, and growth. The seventh key point is master your mind, free your heart. Your mind is like a house filled with countless rooms, some bright and inviting, others dark and cluttered. Most people spend their lives wandering through the cluttered rooms, letting fear, doubt, and resentment take up residence, while neglecting the rooms that could be full of light, clarity, and calm. Mastering your mind is the process of opening those dark rooms, sorting through the chaos, and deciding which thoughts deserve your attention and which are better left outside. The moment you gain this control, your heart begins to operate from a place of freedom rather than reaction. Emotions are the furniture of the mind, and if left unchecked, they can crowd every space, leaving no room for peace. Anger, jealousy, fear, and grief can pile up like heavy chairs in a small room, making it hard to move, hard to breathe. But when you consciously examine your thoughts, when you notice the patterns of rumination and the narratives you replay, you start to remove what doesn't serve you. This is not denial or suppression, it is selective curation. You keep the lessons, the love, and the insight, but you let go of the destructive clutter. In doing so, your heart expands, because it is no longer weighed down by the constant pull of unchecked mental chatter. Mastery of the mind begins with awareness. Most people are unaware of how often their thoughts drive their emotions, and in turn, their actions. A careless word from someone can trigger a storm inside because the mind interprets it through a lens clouded with past hurts and insecurities. Awareness is the flashlight that illuminates those blind spots. When you see a thought arising, you don't have to obey it. You can watch it, understand its origin, and choose whether it deserves a place in your life. This simple act of noticing creates a gap between stimulus and response, giving you the power to respond with clarity, calm, and discernment rather than impulsive emotion. Control over your thoughts is not about rigidity, it is about balance. The mind cannot be forced into silence, nor should it be, because its energy fuels creativity, empathy, and connection. But it can be guided. Like a river that winds through valleys, it can be redirected gently to flow in ways that nourish rather than erode. When you cultivate this flow, your emotional life becomes less reactive. You feel, you love, you connect, but you do not collapse under the weight of every slight, every disappointment, every fear. The heart becomes free not because nothing touches it, but because the mind no longer allows external turbulence to dictate its state. Mastering the mind also means understanding impermanence. Thoughts are like clouds passing across the sky of your consciousness. They arrive, they drift, and they leave. You do not have to chase them, fight them, or cling to them. When you internalize this, you develop resilience. The insults, betrayals, or misunderstandings that once shook you lose their power because you no longer feed them with obsessive attention. Each cloud passes, and the sun, the clarity of your own reason and judgment, shines through again. Your heart learns that stability does not come from the absence of storms, but from the ability to remain centered while the weather changes around you. Discipline and repetition strengthen this mastery. Like practicing a musical instrument or training a body, the mind requires daily engagement. You notice when it wanders, you redirect it, you nurture constructive patterns, and you gently release destructive ones. Over time, this shapes the architecture of your consciousness, making it increasingly difficult for external events to hijack your emotions. You become a gardener of your inner landscape, cultivating fertile soil where joy, love, and confidence can grow, while preventing weeds of fear, anger, and doubt from taking root. Finally, mastering the mind unlocks the ultimate freedom for the heart. When your thoughts are organized, aware, and guided, your heart no longer reacts blindly to every stimulus. You feel deeply without being enslaved by every wave of pain or every flicker of longing. You love fully without dependency, connect openly without fear, and live courageously without constant second-guessing. The heart becomes free because it is supported by a mind that is disciplined yet alive, calm yet vibrant, strong yet receptive. In this alignment, life no longer feels like a battlefield to survive. It feels like a space to experience, fully unshakable and entirely your own. And so you arrive here with all the experiences that have shaped you, the hurts that once weighed you down, and the questions that have kept you awake at night. What you have learned is simple, and yet it is profound. No one outside of you has the power to control your peace, to define your worth, or to dictate the rhythm of your heart. All the tools, all the strength, all the clarity you need has been quietly waiting within you, beneath the surface of doubt and fear. You only have to claim it. You will still encounter betrayal, disappointment, and moments that test your patience. That is life. But now you carry something far more enduring than the turbulence of the world. A mind trained to observe, a heart resilient enough to release, a spirit steady enough to love without dependence. You carve with knowledge that your value is inherent, your peace is yours to guard, and your life is not a reflection of how others treat you. It is a reflection of how fully you choose to live it. The world will continue to challenge you, yet you will move through it differently. You will notice the subtle lessons in what once felt like wounds. You will respond with clarity, not reaction. You will trust yourself before seeking validation, listen deeply without surrendering your own voice, and carry your heart without fear of it being broken. Each step forward will feel lighter, because you are no longer carrying the weight of others' choices as if they were your own. And in this quiet strength, there is a freedom that does not shout, that does not demand recognition, but that moves steadily like a river cutting through stone, not by force but by persistence, presence, and consistency. You are the keeper of your own life, the guardian of your own heart. You can feel, you can care, and you can love, all while remaining untouchable in the ways that truly matter. Walk forward knowing that your clarity, your inner power, and your courage are not gifts from anyone else. They are the life you have cultivated for yourself. Every boundary you set, every lesson you embrace, every moment of self-respect, every thought you master, is a testament to your capacity to live unshaken. And in the quiet of that understanding, in the space between what was and what is, you will find a calm certainty. You are capable, whole, and unassailable. The world may continue as it always does, but you will move through it with a heart that is steady, a mind that is clear, and a spirit that knows its own depth. This is the life of someone who no longer allows hurt to define them, someone who carries freedom within, wherever they go. It is here, in this quiet knowing, that everything changes. Not because the world bends to you, but because you have chosen to stand firm, fully present, and fully yourself. And in that standing, everything else falls into place naturally, effortlessly, as you step forward into the life that has always been waiting for you.